record this.
Okay.
Okay. Well, everything's kind of weird tonight. Nothing's coming up the way it normally does. Hello, everyone out there. Give me a second. I'm trying to get everything
I'm not
started.
sure you're streaming. I logged on to Roger Paul
I can't get in.
and I'm not seeing you.
Okay, let me bring mine up. Hello, everyone. I'll be with everyone in a second. I'm trying to check my progress on Facebook right now and see if I'm streaming. Let me log into my own account over here. Yeah, weird. Yep, I'm streaming. Hello,
Okay.
everyone. I'm good. Okay. Everything looks good. Everything's the way it should be. Hello, everyone. This is Dr. Roger Paul. What do you have here? Being recorded. Yeah, just hit OK down there. It says OK. Okay. There you go. And you got sound in your earphones right now.
Let's see. 1, 2, 3.
Here we go.
Thank you.
Tonight, we're going to continue our study on paper 111, The Adjuster and the Soul. And we're on section 4, paragraph 10, and that's on page 1220, paragraph 9 on the original book, if y'all are following along in the book. Okay, so that's where we are. So let's get started and we'll go from here. Let me see if I can keep everything straight tonight. Dear, would you
Ideas may take origin in the stimuli of the outer world, but ideals are born only in the creative realms of the inner world. Today, the nations of the world are directed by men who have superabundance of ideas, but they are poverty-stricken in ideals. That is the explanation of poverty, divorce, war, and racial hatreds.
Okay, let me get this out of the way so I can see it. We were talking about the inner world last time, if y'all remember, and this first paragraph is a perfect example of what's going on in our world today. The problem is we have ideas that take origin in the physical world or the inner world, or the outer world. That's what I meant to say. And the problem is this: we don't have an abundance of ideals. And that's where the problem comes in. We don't have spiritual ideals, and that's what we need. And that's the reason we have so much poverty, divorce, war, and racial hatreds, is because we don't connect with the ideals part, not the ideas. People have lots of ideas, but they don't have any ideals. And without these ideals to guide us, then our moral standards fall way down, way down. And that's what's going on with the world and all these politics and everything else. And I want to mention something. I have my little pen on tonight. I don't know if y'all can see this or not. See this little pen here?
Yellow.
Huh? This is
yellow.
Huh? This is a Tunnel to Towers pen. Just shows it's a support pen. Been supporting them for years. Also do Wounded Warriors. But the reason I want to bring this up is Tunnel to Towers helps families that's had heroes that's been killed, helps their family. All right. So, and we had an example of that in New York just a couple days ago, right? With another police officer killed. And that's what this is talking about. We don't have ideals to keep these things from happening. And Tunnel to Towers not only helps police officers and firemen and things like that, they help veterans, disabled veterans, and so does Wounded Warriors. We support those too. But the reason I want to mention that is there are people out there that does have good ideals. All right. And it's the ideals that we need to bring in light and life. And when we get our ideas in align with our ideals we should have, what will we be on the way to? We'll be on the way to light and life, right?
Roger,
Yeah,
perhaps I should make a comment that as far as political leaders and the right ideals, I think President Trump, he had a very good ideal as far as peace,
yeah,
no war,
yeah,
and he was working on racial hatred
yeah, he was,
and poverty as well.
he was. And, right now we're in a heap load of trouble and it just keeps getting worse and worse and worse.
Gosh.
So we're gonna have to make some changes one way or another, whether it's this election, next election, whatever. But anyway, this is what they're talking about here, is connecting with our moral standards, having men with ideals running the countries and stuff like that. And if we had people like that in position, things like the war over in Israel and things like that, those sort of things wouldn't happen, right? Because you have ideals running things. And whenever you have enemies that do not have ideals, then you have a big problem, right? Any way you look at it. All right, so I wanted to mention that just starting off. The first thing tonight. Yeah, Gary.
I just want to say that the reason this sentence tells you why socialism does not work. It's a very idealistic system,
Yeah.
but the falling down part is it's ran by people without ideals.
Yeah, the ideals have to be in line, right? With the universe, cosmic ideals, you could call them, really, right?
Yeah, while the socialism cannot work in today's state of religious,
No.
we can't, socialism will not work until we reach light in life, period.
Yeah. Well, that's one of the reasons too. In the book, it states somewhere, I don't remember where off the top of my, I think it's in the government in the neighboring planet, if I'm not mistaken. I could be mistaken, but that's why it says the biggest threat to the world right now is communism. Believe it or not.
Yeah, I read that.
You remember reading that, Rodney? So, it is a threat. It's a threat to the whole world, not just one country or society, but the whole world. Okay, let's go on to the next one. Let's see here. Rodney, I believe you're up next.
This is the problem. If free will man is endowed with the powers of creativity in the inner man, then must we recognize that free will creativity embraces the potential of free will destructivity. And when creativity is turned to destructivity, you are face to face with the devastation of evil and sin, oppression, war, and destruction. Evil is a partiality.
Yeah, that's a tough one.
Of creativity, which tends toward disintegration and eventually destruction. All conflict is evil in that it inhibits the creative function of the inner life. It is a species of civil war in the personality.
War within itself, right? Within your mind, being of two minds, really. When your creativity or your inner free will creativity embraces evil, it turns into free will destructivity. And that's the problem, right? So you not only have to be creative, but the things you do creatively have to be in line with the cosmos concept of ideals and what is truly right and wrong, right? Where's the perfect example of this? Perfect example of this is Lucifer, right? he had this idea, he wanted to do everything his way instead of the way of the universe. So what is that? That's rebellion. And what is that? It's going against God, right?
Roger,
Yeah.
this sounds like something that Dr.
Hey,
Greer
Siri,
would say.
Dr. Who?
Dr.
Greer,
Greer, yeah, that's true. It is. Right along the lines of the things he'd say. And that's why he's always pushing that these these beings that are showing up and they're talking to now, the UFOs, they're of the concept of cosmic unity. Okay.
mhm.
In other
No.
words, to them, they're part of the universe and we're all part of the universe. And they're trying to teach us how to embrace that instead of embracing these constant wars and conflicts and that sort of thing. Right. So that's why he keeps telling everybody it's not something to be afraid of. It's just the opposite, something we should embrace. All right. Gary, would you take the next one?
thank you. Inner creativity contributes to ennoblement of character through personality integration and selfhood unification. It is forever true. The past is unchangeable. Only the future can be changed by the ministry of the present creativity of the inner self.
Okay,
When
so
they
it's
say inner self, they're referring to the brain.
the personality, really
Okay,
your
that's
personality, the mixture of the mind circuit, your brain, and personality, right?
Yeah,
Now,
okay.
self-personality.
right now, if you're living life correctly, what does that also include? That includes the will of God, right? Because if you live your life dedicated to doing the Father's will, then that will be integrated into this creative, noble character,
That's right.
you know?
And you're showing the fruits of the Spirit.
Roots of the Spirit, that's right. And it's automatic. You don't really have to think about it. When you follow the Father's will and everything you do, it becomes a habit to the point where you don't have to sit and think, well, what would God the Father want me to do? You'll know, right?
Exactly.
It's a knowing. All right. And it's interesting too. It talks about this personality integration and selfhood unification, and that's what we were just talking about. You integrate your mind, your personality, and the father fragment, and those all three together gives you a balanced life, right? When you all integrate all three. And that's what it says here. The past is unchangeable. It doesn't matter what you've done in the past. It only matters what you're going to do in the present and the future using the creativity of your inner self, which is what's your inner self? The combination of all these things, right? The Father, the personality, and your own intellectual mind.
In fact,
Okay.
what we learned last Tuesday about initiative,
That's right. It's
your
exactly
intent,
right.
your intent.
Your intent. That's what it's all about, right? What's your intent? And let me take one since there's only 4 of us out here tonight. The consecration of choice. The doing of the will of God is nothing more or less than an exhibition of the creature willingness to share the inner life with God, with the very God who has made such a creature life of inner meaning value possible. Sharing is godlike, divine. God shares all with the eternal Son and the infinite Spirit, while they, in turn, share all things with the divine sons and spirit daughters of the universes. All right. So that's why they call this the consecration of choice. You have to make the choice of doing the will of God, right? And doing the will of God is nothing more than sharing your inner life with God the Father. Okay. And that's why we say, if you live your life with the thought of not my will, but your will be done, or not my will, but it's my will that your will be done. If you live your life like that, then you're going to go down the right pathways any way you look at it, because that's sharing your life with God. You share your life with God, and God shares his spirit personality with you, right? You both gain something out of it. Okay. Well, you got a real short one, dear. I may have to make you read too.
It's fine. The imitation of God is the key to perfection. The doing of his will is the secret of survival and of perfection in survival. That's nice.
All right, let me, this is a very small paragraph, but it's got a really big meaning, okay? We not only want to imitate God to be perfect. You still got your mic on, dear?
I do, honey. I'm sorry.
I'm getting feedback. It's not only just the doing the will of God, right? But it's what I just said. It's you making the decision that it's your will to do the will of God. And by doing that, what happens? That's the secret of survival and perfection in survival. Because when you dedicate your life to doing the will of God throughout your entire life, when you get to the mansion worlds, or even before you get to the mansion worlds, fusion is eventually going to happen, right? And when you fuse, your survival is locked in for eternity. You become part of God, God becomes part of you, and you become a certain amount of perfection because of that fusion. You see, we're not perfect, but God is perfect. And when we fuse with that perfect fragment, what happens? We gain perfection to a certain extent. We still have to work on it, but we gain immediate perfection because God becomes permanently part of you, and you become a permanent part of God. That's why you become real sons and daughters of God. Sweetie, you want to take this one too, since that one was so short?
Mortals live in God, and so God has willed to live in mortals. As men trust themselves to him, so has he and first trusted a part of himself to be with men and women, has consented to live in men and to indwell men subject to the human will.
Okay, it's not just the fact that God has chosen to live within us, but he's chosen to live within us subject to your human will. Okay, so your will has dominance in your life, not God's. Okay, so every decision you make is your decision, not God's decision. That's important to know. So when you choose to do the will of God all the time, it has to be your will making that decision to choose that. Without making that decision to choose that, your human will overrides God's will every time. Human will is supreme in the universe. Okay? So whatever you decide, that's what happens. This becomes real important in one aspect. If you choose not to survive, what happens? You end. That's it. No more of you, right? So your survival is totally up to your decisions and your own human will. All right. Rodney, I think you're up again.
Yes. Peace in this life, survival in death, perfection in the next life, service in eternity. All these are achieved in spirit. Now, when the creature personality consents, chooses to subject the creature will to the Father's will, and already has the Father chosen to make a fragment of himself subject to the will of the creature personality.
So all this depends on what? Your decisions, right? It's not God's decision that this depends on. Notice here it says peace in this life and survival in death. Perfection in the next life and service in eternity. But all this happens now by you choosing to do the will of God. Kind of a interesting way this is set up, isn't it?
This is very comforting.
It is comforting, you know. So, you know, people say, well, you know, you meet people and say, well, how do I know I'm sure I'm going to go to heaven? You know, I see these commercials on TV all the time. Are you sure you're going to heaven? You know, yeah, I'm sure I made that decision because made the decision to follow God's will in my life, right?
Right.
So there's no question about it. That's that's how you survive. You know, you can't get to heaven without choosing the Father's will. That's just all there is to it. All right. And so it's part of our own personality, it says here, that chooses to subject the creature will to the Father's will. So we have to make an intellectual decision to choose that will. And the interesting part is it tells us here that God's already made his decision to give us a fragment of himself. So yeah, Gary.
You're muted.
You're muted, Gary.
It just dawned on me, the Christian religion is not doing as well as I thought they would, in the sense of bringing people to God, in the sense that they are not talking to anybody about doing God's will in their life.
That's right.
Okay. And
That's
it's
right.
all it's leading everybody astray. It's bad news.
Well, you know, I just finished copying the Pentecost paper. And in the Pentecost paper, it says right at the beginning of it that we got off base soon as the Holy Spirit, as soon as the Spirit of truth was poured over man. Peter got off the message immediately, didn't he? He changed the gospel, which is the fatherhood of God, the decision to follow God's will, and the brotherhood of man. He changed the gospel, that was the gospel, to the resurrection of Christ. And what does Paul come along and do shortly after that? Paul comes along shortly after that and changes the gospel again to Jesus died for your sins. Remember that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so the gospel was changed twice before 100 years had even passed, right? So we lost the concept of the fatherhood of God and the brotherhood of man wrapped up in the fatherhood of God was what? Doing the will of God, doing the will of the Father. Yeah, it's simple. It's almost so simple, it's ridiculous. You know, you want to go, what is wrong with me? How did I miss that? Right? And
Yeah,
yet
I was thinking,
the Christian churches missed it for 2,000 years, haven't they?
that the Christian church wasn't that bad because of, they were bringing people to Jesus or God, whatever,
And if you do that,
but
Gary, they're cheating
it's,
people.
huh?
They're cheating
Well,
people.
it's like going down to the river and taking a side tour and go
Yeah.
out to the desert. I mean,
Mhm.
you
Yeah.
kind of missed the river there, bud, but you're
Yeah.
close.
Yeah.
You
But
know,
Gary, these people will still end up in the mansion world because of their belief in Jesus, right?
yeah, that's
That's the whole point. Because they believe in Jesus and Jesus is our creator God of this universe. He's the representation of God the Father. So all these people that's been saved by Jesus, according to them, you know, uh, they're going to be in heaven too. You know, the problem is they missed the whole point of Jesus's seventh bestowal, right? Because each of the bestowals was a revelation of a different aspect of deity. Remember the seven bestowals? How one bestowal was to represent God the Father and God the Son. One of them was for the God the Son and God the Spirit. One of them was just God the Son. One of them was just God the Spirit. And the last bestowal, guess who that was the representation of?
The will of the Father.
the will of the Father, God the Father. So by doing this, they've missed the other 6 bestowals completely. And that's why I keep sticking it in with things all the time. Because when people start reading it and they start understanding that the other six bestowals were just as important of Jesus's bestowal on earth as a mortal, because that was the final bestowal. And that's what earned him what? His sovereignty of the local universe, his supreme sovereignty of the local universe. But coming back to the Christian church, they have done a good job in at least getting people to acknowledge that their father, in essence, is Jesus. And it also acknowledges God the Father, Jesus's Father, because he is the representation of God the Father himself, along with the Son too. Okay, so they've not gone too far off, Will, but it's a pity that Jesus's message and Jesus's purpose in coming to this planet was to reveal the love of God the Father and the brotherhood of man to each other. And that message kind of got lost in the excitement of Pentecost, really.
Mhm.
So if you understand that, you go, oh, okay, let's get back to what Jesus wanted us to learn. I think that's important that we do that, you know? It's important we try to follow the leading of our Creator Son. All right. No,
I think it's my turn.
I think it is, Gary.
Okay, such a creature choice is not a surrender of will. It is a consecration of will, an expansion of will, a glorification of will, a perfecting of will, and such choosing raises the creature will from the level of temporal significance to the higher estate, wherein the personality of the creature son consumes,
Communes.
communes with the personality of the uh, spirit father.
Okay, so by doing this, by raising this will realization, okay, what you're doing is you're going from a purely mortal will decision really to a Morontia decision, aren't you? Because you're making a decision of the soul at that point. And any decision which affects the soul is what? Building up the Morontia future. You with me? So
Mhm.
by doing this, by doing this expansion of the will, the glorification of the will, the perfecting of the will, you're raising your level from just a temporal existence, a mortal existence, to a higher state. And at that higher state, the creature son actually communes with the personality of the spirit father. So you as a creature son, that's us, okay, becomes part of the personality spirit of the Father. So what you have is you have 2 personalities coming together. You think about it, because you have your personality, which is individual, unique, different than everybody else's, communing with the personality fragment of the Spirit of God the Father himself. Make sense? Just as if Jesus communed with God the Father himself, you are raised to a state where you commune with God the Father yourself. Everybody still with me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Let me read one since there's so few of us. This choosing of the Father's will is the spiritual finding of the Spirit Father by mortal men. Catch that? The Spirit finding of the Spirit Father by mortal man, even though an age must pass before the creature son may actually stand in the factual presence of God on present paradise. That's our ascension plan, right? This choosing does not so much consist in the negation of creature will, not my will, but yours be done, as it consists in the creature's positive affirmation. This is the key, y'all. It is my will that your will be done. That's the
That's it.
difference. That's the key, right? It is my will that your will be done. We're choosing that the Father's will be done. And if this choice is made, sooner or later will the God choosing Son find inner union, fusion with the inner God fragment. This same perfecting Son will find supreme personality satisfaction in the worship communion of the personality of man and the personality of his maker. Two personalities, that's what we just said, wasn't it? Whose creative attitudes have eternally joined in self-willed maturity of expression. This is growing up, the birth of another eternal partnership of the will of man and the will of God goes into the soul. When you get to the mansion worlds, the soul fuses with the Father fragment and you become a real son of God. Make
That's our
sense?
goal.
Huh?
That's our goal.
That's our goal, right? That's what we're trying to do here. All right.
The only thing I can say is,
I lost you there, Gary. The only thing you could say is what? Oh, you're muted now. There you
I said the only thing I can say is son of a gun.
go. Really? Son of a God. All right. Next one's labeled human paradox, y'all. You know what a paradox is?
It's us.
Two doctors that don't know. No.
Yeah.
I thought that was engineers.
No, that's called diagnosis. Two doctors that don't know. Die is for two and gnosis is for knowing. So you have 2 people that don't know. All right, let's go on. Diane, you want to take the next one, sweetie?
6. The human paradox. Many of the temporal troubles of mortal man grow out of his twofold relation to the cosmos. Man is part of nature. He exists in nature, and yet he is able to transcend nature. Man is finite, but he is indwelt by a spark of infinity. Such a dual situation not only provides the potential for evil, but also engenders many social and more moral situations fraught with much uncertainty and not a little anxiety. Yeah.
Okay, childs of nature. Let me talk about this for a second. If you're out running around hugging trees and living in the woods and all this other stuff, that's fine and dandy. But you realize that's your human part. That's not your spiritual part, right? All right. So that's when they say it's fraught with nature. Whenever you put your physical self, whenever you put your mortal self, your concepts of touchy feeling, all this stuff in the human nature, the mortal nature, and don't provide for the spiritual nature, that's what it's talking about. It's fraught with danger because you can choose evil very easily, right? It says more situations fraught with much uncertainty and not a little anxiety. So when you're trying to balance yourself between being a mortal that's totally dedicated to the world and what's going on in the world, it's hard to keep the spiritual life in check. That's just all there is to it, right? So that's what they're talking about, this human paradox. We come from mortality. We are part of nature, but we have a spiritual part, which is the thought adjuster, that is already transcendent of nature. So we become of two minds. Our personality wants to connect to the spirituality, but our physical part wants us to keep us in the physical reality, right? That's why do you think people fear death so much? They want to stay. Why do they fear death so
Oh,
much?
here.
Yeah.
I can answer that.
they want to stay on this planet. They want to stay in this reality, right? Yeah, Gary, go ahead.
I can answer that.
All right.
Fear of death is not the fear of dying. It's the fear, excuse me, let me qualify this. The fear of death is not the fear of dying to the older people. I'm including me
Yeah.
in there
Yeah,
and
me. Yeah.
my age group. Okay.
Yeah.
I'll let you sneak in there too, Roger. You're
Yeah.
a little bit young.
Yeah.
Okay. But anyway, but it's the actual fear of death is the fear of the pain of death.
Yeah. Well, how
I
you
mean, I'll
die,
be honest with you. A friend of
not
mine
death
asked me,
itself. It's
"Are you afraid to die?" And I said, "No." He
yeah.
said, "You're a liar." And I says, "I am not afraid to die." I says, "Now, if you ask me, do I want to look forward to the pain of dying?
Yeah.
No.
Right.
But actual death, I have no fear of. Matter of fact, to tell the truth, I'm kind of looking forward to it."
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
But that what I'm talking about is when you're younger, Gary. With younger people, they want to stay on this planet. They like this world, right? They like their situation, they're having a good time and everything is hunky-dory. And they really are afraid to go on to the next level because of the unknown, right? They don't know what to expect. And that's part of what this book does is it gives you a picture or an idea of what's coming. And so you don't hold as tight
Mhm.
as you normally would to this world, right? Because this world is fleeting. It won't be here very long. Our life is really, really short. There's nothing long about it. And the older you get, like Gary just said, you realize how short it is. It goes by fast, you know?
Mm.
All right.
It's
Rodney,
my-
I think, yeah.
the courage required to effect the conquest of nature and to transcend oneself is a courage that might succumb to the temptations of self-pride. The mortal who can transcend self might yield to the temptation to defy his own self-consciousness. The mortal dilemma consists in the double fact that man is in bondage to nature, while at the same time he possesses a unique liberty, freedom of spiritual choice and action. On material levels, man finds himself subservient to nature, while on the spiritual levels, he is triumphant over nature and over all things temporal and finite. Such a paradox is inseparable from temptation, potential evil, decisional errors. And when self becomes proud and arrogant, sin may evolve.
And this is the sin they're talking about that most people feel guilty about in life, because you have material urges in this body. There's no way around it. Okay. You've got hormones, you've got all these things going on. And since you're connected to nature, you're connected to the finite, right? When you try to come above the finite and make spiritual choices, freedom of spiritual choices and spiritual actions, then you're at war within yourself, right? Because your nature wants you to do everything that feels good and wants to pull you back into bondage. And these are the types of things that people call sins, right? Against each other, against themselves. And these kinds of sins will pass away when you get to the mansion world. You won't have those sins anymore. Okay, because you won't be connected to what? Nature. Does that make sense? You won't be connected to the physical like you are on this planet right now. All right, so many of those potential errors and decisional errors and things will be a thing of the past. But the problem comes is when you get yourself above that, what happens? You become arrogant and proud. All right,
Then
so
you
you have
mess up.
then you mess up. right? So you really have to be careful of those sorts of things. That's why I keep saying over and over and over again, a spiritual man, a smart man, an intelligent man is always humble. Because when you start to put yourself in front of everyone and everything else, you're going down the wrong road. And I don't care what you're doing. That's the truth. Whether you're a spiritual person or whatever, in your spiritual profession, whether you're in politics, whether you're a doctor, lawyer, Indian chief, it's all the same thing, right? You know who the best doctors are? Those are the humble doctors, because they realize they can't know everything. And that's why they refer you to somebody that's better than themselves when they don't know, right? Specialist, right? That's why you become a specialist. So you're an expert in something else. All right. Most of us go through life being expert at being stupid, right?
Oh, I got that.
Yeah. All right. Let's go on to
I've
the
got a
next one, Gary.
PhD in that stuff, man.
I do too. I got a couple of them, I think, in my life. All right, Gary, would you take the next one?
The problem of sin is not self-existence in the finite world. The fact of finiteness
Yep.
is not evil or sinful. The finite world was made by an infinite creator. It is the handiwork of his divine sons, and therefore it must be good. It is the misuse, distortion, and perversion of the finite that gives origin to evil and sin.
Did y'all catch
How
that
can you
big?
know if you're misusing
Well,
something? How can you know you're misusing water?
well, I tell you what, that last little sentence, Gary, gives you the key to everything. All right. It's the misuse, distortion, and perversion of the finite that gives you problems, gives rise to evil and sin. If you do not misuse anything, then everything you do in this finite life can be what? Good,
Peaceful.
peaceful, good. Good for the world, good for everybody else, good for the universe, good for you to go on to the next level, right?
Okay, I just answered my question.
Yes, you did.
You can misuse water if you don't use it for if you use it for destruction.
That's
I'll
right.
give an example. During various wars, the enemy would bomb a dam to flood an area
And kill
to wipe
everyone.
out
Yeah.
various things.
Yeah.
So that would be a misuse. So I got a little bit smarter today.
There you go. Another misuse of water. You go scuba diving, you don't have enough air in your tank. What happens? You misuse water and you're going to drown, right?
Right.
That's the way it works. You can't change the laws of God. That's all there is to it, no matter how you try. All right. Well, we're getting along there tonight. Okay, let's go on to the next one. The spirit can dominate mind, so mind can control energy, but mind can control energy only through its intelligent manipulation of the metamorphic potentials inherent in the mathematical level of the causes and effects of the physical domains. I'll have to explain that to y'all. Creature mind does not inherently control energy. That is a deity prerogative. But creature mind can and does manipulate energy just in so far as it becomes master of the energy secrets of the physical universe. Okay, let me make this simple for y'all. Your spirit, God the Father, can help you dominate mind. Okay, so mind can control that energy in the mind. Okay, but the mind can only control external energy through its manipulation of the normal potentials of that energy. And how does it do that? It creates mechanical objects that you can manipulate to create or modify energy. How do you do that? If you create a generator, what do? You create energy, don't you? All right. That's the only way that a mortal can create energy out of nothing. You can't by your mind go out and say, well, I'm going to create this energy and put it into my electrical system at home, right? It's not possible. You cannot do that. But you can create things that can help you manipulate the matter that's out there, the physical domains that's out there, and create energy for your use. Now, it also goes on to tell us that creature mind does not inherently control energy. That's a deity prerogative. What would be an example of that? The mechanical controllers of the planets, like the Morontia controllers, right? They control energy. They're the deity prerogatives that do those sort of things, and those same types of beings controls all the planets, the magnetic systems, the energy systems of the planet, the suns. Do you think that that sun got all of its power by itself?
No.
Nothing does. All of that is the domain of deity. Only the creator sun, the creator mother spirit can create universes, right? They have beings they put in charge of manipulating the 30 different kinds of energy out there to make these things function properly. Okay. Our mind can't control that. That's what they're telling us. But we can create machines that can help us manipulate those potentials that are already out there and create all sorts of wonderful things to make our life more interesting and better, right?
Mhm.
What's an example of that? What we're doing right here? Washing machines. What's an example? Another example, what we're doing right now. 30 years ago, you couldn't sit and talk to somebody else in their house and see their picture and record it and put it out there for other people to watch. Could you? But because we've learned how to manipulate potentials, we're able to do that right now. And who knows what we're going to be able to do in the next 1,000 years, right?
Roger.
Yeah.
Another good example is either an electrician or a plumber.
Yeah. They're the people that manipulate the potentials, right? Because whatever you're working on has potential for doing work, right?
Mhm.
If what's that physicist's name? The Chinese physicist, he could tell you this perfectly. It's all in physics, right? It all boils down to physics, which is kind of interesting. Okay, let's go on to the next one. Secrets of the universe. All right. Diane, you're back.
Yeah.
Hang on.
When man wishes to modify physical reality, be it himself or his environment, he succeeds to the extent that he has discovered the ways and means of controlling matter and directing energy. Unaided mind is important to influence anything material, save its own physical mechanism, with which it is inescapably linked. But through the intelligent use of the body mechanism, mind can create other mechanisms, even energy relationships and living relationships, by the utilization of which this mind can increasingly control and even dominate its physical level in the universe.
Okay, so we can't hardly control anything with our mind other than our own body, right? And we don't do a good job of that, right? If we did, we wouldn't have disease, right? Because if we could really control it, we could control our own disease. All right.
Isn't that Adam and Eve's fault?
That's Adam and Eve's fault. That's exactly right.
See, I know how to blame people and make excuses.
There you go. There you go.
You tell me I don't have talent. That's two tonight.
That's right. But through the use of that same mind, we can create mechanisms and energy living relationships that allow us to do what? To utilize our surroundings and dominate our physical level of the universe to the point where we can improve our life, right? All right, makes sense. All right, Rodney, you're up again.
Science is the source of facts, and mind cannot operate without facts. They are the building blocks in the construction of wisdom, which are cemented together by the life experience. Man can find the love of God without facts, and man can discover the laws of God without love. But man can never begin to appreciate the infinite symmetry, the supernal harmony, the exquisite repleteness of the all-inclusive nature of the first source and center until he has found divine law and divine love, and has experientially unified these in his own evolving cosmic philosophy.
The fatherhood of God, the brotherhood of man.
Right.
That's exactly what this is explaining, right? All these things have to do with discovering God is your father and other men are your brothers. And through love of God and love of other men, there's a symmetry that is out there that reveals itself as you go, right? This is what Jesus taught us, right? And all this is based on science and fact. You know, the people keep saying that the Urantia book, it has nothing to do with science. Everything has to do with science, religion, and philosophy.
A lot of
Everything.
They're
Yeah.
all integrated. You can't have one without the other, right?
What's that
Oh.
again? Science, religion,
And
and
philosophy,
philosophy?
right? Science, religion, and philosophy, all three of them are necessary in our current universe.
That's right.
All of them.
You know,
You can't have harmony with anything without all three. Think of it this way.
there. I took a philosophy class years ago,
Right,
and philosophy is the study of knowledge, is when it breaks down with the Greek letters.
right.
Okay.
Yeah,
And basically, the study of knowledge, you get philosophy before you get science. It's a theory before it's a science. It's a fact.
yes.
And
Where'd that come from?
It
I
happened.
don't know where religion fits in. I'm not sure in that scheme, but I think philosophy, religion, I think it may go religion down to philosophy, down to science.
Actually, philosophy is the Morontia part of it, Gary, because the philosophy is the logic part of it. Okay, you normally take logic before you take philosophy in religions classes and stuff. Reason being, if you can't think logical, if you can't come up to a conclusion, then all your thoughts mean nothing. Okay, but what I'm talking about here is how science, the physical sciences, the facts of the universe is integrated with not only philosophy and how things you learn about things and how things work, but also religion, because you can't separate the three in the overall cosmos of the universe. The example of that is this: God the Father is the force behind everything, including the eternal Son, the infinite Spirit. There is an original first source and center, and that's why they say that way here is the first source and center is the original spiritual over control of material matter, both spiritual, Morontia, and finite. Okay, so you can't have a universe without a spiritual over control, and that's the religion part of it. Okay, and you cannot have a universe without a philosophical control and administration of that universe. If the universe itself were not logical in the way everything worked together as a physical universe, if it was not logical to start out with, you couldn't have the universe in the first place because it wouldn't all stay together.
Right.
That's just all there is to it. So without God the Father, without a philosophy to manage or bring it all together, you couldn't have the finite part of it, which is the physical part of it, which is the science part of it. Does that make sense?
It does. Yeah.
Okay, so
Yes, it does.
it all three
And-
has to be there. You can't have any part of it without the other.
And I also see a merging, a gradual merging of the various elements together. For instance, okay, we have the philosophical or the religious part of God,
Right.
and then God's got physical controllers controlling all this stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, so there goes into the philosophical and the practical at the same time. So it's kind of like a river flowing down the stream.
That's right. And think of it this way, Gary, and real scientists know this. When they came up with the Big Bang Theory, they came up with the Big Bang Theory mostly after Einstein's theory of relativity. And Einstein's theory of relativity's got some problems with it too. But the Big Bang Theory was that at one point in the universe, there was this explosion and it went everything started going outward, right? And that's because we observed the universe going outward. And the reason we observe the universe going outward is because universal respiration. It goes out for 1 billion years and comes back for 1 billion years. Okay. But what they're missing is that first source and center. Even if there was a Big Bang, there had to be a God. There had to be a first source and center for that object to happen at that time in the past.
Absolutely.
There could be no start without an I am.
You just knocked down every atheist that has ever spouted anything.
Yeah,
That's right.
because it's logical, right? What did I
Shame
say?
on you.
Yeah.
All the
It-
fun they have, you just messed it up.
Yeah, well, it's like I said, you have to have what? You have to
You
have the
can't help
logic.
stupid.
You can't help stupid. That's right. You have to have the science, the religion, and the philosophy integrated into one. They're not separable,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
You
I
can't
agree.
have a God, you can't have the God the Father without the universe, right? The physical universe, right?
Mhm.
Why can't you have God the Father without a physical universe? Because he would have no relationship to anything. We would no exist. We wouldn't be here, right?
Mhm.
So at one point in the past, they speculate that God the Father, the I am, was the only thing in existence, right? But we would never know that, would we? Because we wouldn't exist. Does that
Mhm.
make sense?
I think for a long period of time, he was the only thing.
He probably was. And then he
He
created the
kind of says,
Son and the
I'm kind
Spirit.
of bored here. What am I going to do? I need a hobby.
Yeah, let's create a 7 super universe, right? Let's create paradise. Let's create Havana, And then after they got done creating paradise in Havana, well, this is kind of limited. Let's expand out. Let's have some creator sons come along and create some mini universes,
Yeah.
right?
It's the process of evolving.
It's a process of evolving,
That's why we have 7 universes. He's been around so doggone long.
That's
You
right.
know?
Yeah, that's right. All right, let's get off this paragraph and see if we can go on to the next one. And this is probably going to expand what I just said more than likely the way this
It's 7 o'clock.
work. Huh?
It's 7 o'clock.
Oh, is
Yes.
it? Oh, it is. I just
Yeah.
keep going and going. Let's cut this off. Let me stop the share. Let's have a little prayer and we'll quit for tonight. Gary, would you like to pray for us tonight? Since we're so few, say a short
I
prayer.
have thanks to you, a better understanding of prayer,
Yep.
okay, and worship. And I think that may have handicapped my praying. So I haven't the faintest idea what I'm going to say, but I'll give it a go.
Say what's in
Okay.
your heart. That's all you got to do, you know?
God, guide us in our daily lives. Help us become one with you. Let our thought adjusters speak to us as loudly as you want them to. Help us to understand your will and to implement it in our daily lives. Let us ever be cognizant and knowledgeable that we have our will to do your will. And without us consciously wanting to do your will, we retard our ascension to you in pure joy. Amen.
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 Beautiful prayer.
Amen.
And
Mhm.
thank you at home all for joining us. Please come see us again. We'd love to see you again.
Thank you, Carrie.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, that was lovely.
Leave that one stuff over there.
Goodbye, all.
Goodbye, everybody.